Hey there, and welcome back. I am absolutely thrilled we get to hang out today. As your teacher, I genuinely love days like today, mostly because we get to unpack something that isn't just, some abstract idea. It's something that literally changes how you live your everyday life. So, in today's explainer, our main goal is to explore how genuine faith is a highly active, totally dynamic, and not at all passive part of our lives. We're going to look at the ultimate example of faith in action, so get your mind focused, grab your notes, and let's get into it. Okay, let's dive right into this. Before we even peek at our lesson plan, I want you to think about a really critical question. Just chew on this for a second. Did God's promise to Abraham come through the law or through faith? If you know anything about the incredible, world-changing promises God made to Abraham, you might be wondering what actually unlocked them. Like, was it a perfect track record of rule following, or was it something else entirely? Keep that question rolling around in the back of your mind as we go. So, here is our game plan for today's explainer. First, we'll cover God's promise through faith. Second, Abraham, faith in action. Third, faith, effort, and surrender. Fourth, trusting the impossible. And finally, we'll wrap up with the Godly Learner's philosophy. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, God's promise through faith, based on grace. So let's actually define what we're talking about here. Faith is receiving God's promise simply by believing Him. And because it works that way, it makes the promise according to grace, which means it's available to everyone, rather than just coming through the strict rules of the law. Think of faith as the master key to accessing God's promises. It is absolutely crucial to grasp that this whole system is based entirely on grace. It isn't about perfectly following the law or never, ever making a mistake. Honestly, if it were based on the law, none of us would be able to access these promises, right? Because none of us are perfect. But because it's based on faith, the door is thrown wide open for anyone who chooses to believe. Now, what's really interesting about this next verse is how perfectly and beautifully faith and grace are connected. This is our memory verse for the day, Romans 4:16. Therefore, it is of faith that it might be according to grace. See? They work in total harmony. Grace is basically God holding out this incredible, unbelievable gift to you. And faith? Well, faith is simply you reaching out your hand to accept it. You didn't earn the gift, but you still have to actively take hold of it. And that is the true beauty of how this works. Moving right along to Section 2, Abraham, faith in action. Let's look at Abraham's example. You see, Abraham didn't just sit around in his tent, passively shrugging and saying, "Sure, yeah, I believe God." No way. He actively and boldly responded. Step 1, he trusted God's word when God told him to look up at the night sky and count the stars, promising that his descendants would be just as numerous. Step 2 was genuine surrender. When God later gave Abraham the ultimate test, asking him to offer his son, Isaac, Abraham moved in total, unwavering obedience. And step 3, because of those very actions, his faith was made complete. His belief wasn't just stuck in his head, it was actually lived out in his footsteps. Which brings us to Section 3, faith, effort, and surrender. The hallmarks of genuine faith. Okay, let's use a school analogy, something you deal with all the time. Imagine you have a massive math test tomorrow. Lazy faith is, wandering around the house saying, "Oh, I totally believe I'm going to pass this math test," but then you shove your textbook under the bed and play video games for 4 hours. That faith is completely empty. There's literally zero effort behind it. Genuine faith, on the flip side, says, "I believe God has given me the ability to pass this math test." And because you believe that, you sit down, open the book, and study hard for 2 hours. Your trust actually leads to action. In our spiritual walk, genuine faith requires trust, surrender, action, and obedience to God. It actively responds to Him. So the crucial point here is found in our bonus verse from James chapter 2, verse 22. Do you see that faith was working together with His works, and by works faith was made perfect? This proves exactly what we just talked about. Our effort doesn't earn God's grace, just like studying doesn't change the actual questions on the math test. But our effort absolutely completes and perfects our faith. It's the proof that our belief is real. Now, let me be super clear about something. Actually, this is vital. While our active effort and our obedience are entirely required, we never, ever boast in human effort. You can't look at what you've achieved and say, "Wow, look how great I am." Why? Because God is the one who gives the promise, the grace, the mercy, and the power to begin with. I mean, He literally provides the oxygen in your lungs so you can even take those steps of obedience. We put in the effort, for sure, but all the glory, all the credit, always goes straight back to Him. All right, Section 4, trusting the impossible, believing God's word. And this brilliantly illustrates what living faith really looks like when the pressure is on. Abraham believed in the God who literally gives life to the dead. He trusted the God who calls things that do not exist as though they did. I mean, just think about how wild that is. Abraham trusted God's word even when the promise seemed mathematically, biologically, and naturally impossible. As a student, there are definitely going to be times when the goals right in front of you seem totally impossible. So the question is, do you have that Abraham level of trust that God can make a way where there is absolutely no way? Finally, Section 5, the Godly Learner's Philosophy, our daily response.
This right here is the absolute heartbeat of our philosophy at HeroesMart Academy. We intentionally intertwine biblical morality with education because honestly, education without morality can hurt. Think about it. If you become incredibly smart, like a brilliant scientist or an amazing writer, but you have zero moral compass, you can easily end up using that intelligence for the wrong things. Knowledge and intelligence should help you make wise, God-honoring choices rather than simply making you more capable of doing whatever you want. True education builds your character right alongside your intellect.
To really lock this idea in, check out Romans 8, 6-7. It teaches us that keeping the mind spiritually minded leads to life and peace. As you pursue your academic excellence, as you're grinding through studying for exams and writing those long papers, you've got to keep your mind centered on God, on His truth, on wisdom, and on righteous choices. When your developing, brilliant mind is spiritually anchored, the result isn't just a good report card, it's genuine, deep-rooted life and peace. So I want to leave you with this final challenging thought. How are you going to put your faith into action and make God-honoring choices in your studies today? Remember, genuine faith isn't lazy. It isn't just saying you believe. It's sitting down at your desk, doing the hard work, trusting God for the understanding, and using what you learn to glorify Him. Don't just be a passive listener today. Be an active learner. Take this lesson, apply it to your homework, apply it to how you treat your family, and just watch what God does. Have a fantastic day of studying, and I'll see you next time.